Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. Who doesn't love a little holiday drama? Today, I'm with a fellow news fiend to talk about some of our city's biggest beefs, rivalries, feuds from this year, from a spicy mayoral race to an epic battle over potholes. We are talking who won and who lost in 2025. It's Tuesday, December 23rd. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with Colin Williams over at Pittsburgh City Paper. Colin, when I think about who in the city loves the goss, is maybe even ready to stir the pot just a little bit, it's City Paper. It's an all weekly, all day.
We love a hot beef in here in the city of Pittsburgh. We really enjoy a good gossip sesh. And yeah, so I'm really excited for this episode.
Cool. So you have your list. I have a list. I did attempt some rough categories here. So we'll start with the big one, Mayor Ed Gainey, who we just talked to on the show yesterday. He had quality beef this year, or maybe we should say that other people had quality beef with him.
Yeah, there were so many people that really, it felt like they were kind of coming for him at different points in the year. Obviously.
And still are, we should point out, like in this moment, they still are coming for the outgoing mayor.
Absolutely. I mean, I just recently this past week, I think was experiencing some of the same frustrations that a lot of Pittsburghers were with this process of clearing our streets of all the snow that we got last Saturday.
Yeah.
And the city controller's office is a beef that's been simmering for quite some time that really came to the fore once again in the snowplow debacle. We talked to Controller Heisler, and she was quite critical of kind of how the city's fleets have been maintained, both in regards to snowplows, but also things like ambulances, police vehicles, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's going to be an ongoing one. I don't know if it's going to be against Gainey per se, but certainly it's the fleet writ large, I think, is something we're going to keep talking about in 2026. Also, of course, the mayoral race, Corey O'Connor versus Ed Gainey. That was spicy back in the spring.
Oh, man. I mean, the fact that they were effectively trading events to sort of prove their standpoint on housing was really something to behold. I mean, especially during the very end of the mayoral race, we followed Mayor Gainey on his affordable housing tour, and the entire thing felt a little bit directed at O'Connor's criticisms of him, as if to say, sort of the proof is in the pudding. Here's the housing that we've built. Mm-hmm. I thought that was quite a moment of politicking. You don't really see that kind of thing on the national stage as much. Yeah.
And I mean, they were just trading barbs constantly, like, Gainey accusing Corey O'Connor of being way too friendly with developers, Corey O'Connor accusing Gainey of not getting enough done.
And some of these critiques, there were valid points made on both sides. And I think it just represents, honestly, like a fundamental difference in point of view. I know we've got another beef coming up on the show that really relates to these topics, but it's so interesting. Like the inclusionary zoning debate has really divided a lot of progressives in this city because they're sort of our Gainey's camp that are very in favor of affordable zoning, kind of overlaid across the entire city.
Yep.
And O'Connor was constantly touting this more sort of market-based approach. Like each neighborhood is different. We have to sort of address the needs on the ground. And that really became just this big fault line in Pittsburgh politics this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's jump ahead to it. They were talking about mandatory citywide inclusionary zoning. This was something Gainey proposed, not this year, but last year. So it's been being talked about for a long time, but I feel like it really came to the fore this year as part of that, the primary process, like starting really at the beginning in January when Corey O'Connor finally acknowledged, yes, I am in fact running for mayor. Then stuff just popped off. And the two organizations truly at the center of it were not our politicians. They were Pro Housing Pittsburgh and Lawrenceville United.
Yes, they're both very entrenched in their point of view at this point. And I think one of the things that's interesting for me about that particular beef is that it is a liberal divide. Like there's all this national ink being spilled about how, cracks are appearing in MAGA and like these different camps are kind of appearing.
But Democrats want to eat each other.
Democrats love to eat their own, and you see it a lot around issues like housing and transit and some of these things where you can really see a divide between people who want stronger public support and people who really want the market to regulate these things. Pro Housing Pittsburgh and this YIMBY and abundance camp has really taken this strong line in favor of just let's build, build, build. And Lawrenceville United was much more about kind of pumping the brakes and let's right some historic wrongs.
Lawrenceville United was definitely aligned with the Gainey proposal for mandatory IZ. Pro Housing Pittsburgh, as you say, like they just wanted to build things in whatever way that gets done. Some stuff was like, like lessening restrictions on zoning, for example. But others was in favor of incentive programs, which is where the city seems to have landed, at least for right now. Not Gainey's plan, not mandatory. The folks that are in charge of it, councilperson Erica Strasberger, called it an incentive program. It's not even IZ. Like, we don't need to call it that anymore. But we will figure out its fate probably in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what this looks like under a new administration. I mean, it remains to kind of be seen if O'Connor's approach is going to differ that much from Gainey's, because we've certainly seen a lot of development greenlit under Gainey. I mean, we've got transit-oriented developments coming online in places like East Liberty, lots of housing being built in the Strip. So, as our population continues to grow, I'm really curious to see how that kind of accelerates, especially against the backdrop of the national economy, because there's a lot of uncertainty there right now.
Yeah, and we need housing all over the city at every price point. But I mostly see housing being built at that $250,000 and up. And that's like the cheap stuff. Like it's more like $500,000, $750,000. Like those are the starting prices especially for a lot of those condos in the Strip District.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a rental unit in Lawrenceville right now, to the point of Lawrenceville United, that's going to be coming online soon. And the floor on rents for these units is around $2,000. And we're talking about studio apartments here. This isn't like a Pittsburgh townhouse. This is a box in a bigger box. That's going to be quite expensive for the average Pittsburgher, I think.
We will keep talking about that in the coming year. Let's go to transit, because you brought that up. Huge battle this year has been Pittsburgh Regional Transit, but really every transit organization in the entire state of Pennsylvania arguing with Harrisburg that you have to fund us. Like we are necessary services and we cannot keep functioning the way we are.
This has parallels in so many other national conversations, in the sense that there's a real kind of ideological battle being fought between whether these agencies should be run as businesses or whether they should be providers of services. And the transit agencies have consistently said, we are providers of services. We are, the last mile delivery, the last mile commute. We are the sort of hyper local connector. But the Republicans in Harrisburg have been pretty staunch about trying to frame this in terms of profitability and cutbacks and all this other stuff. And there was a real impasse there where I wasn't sure if we were going to be facing down, imminent bus route cuts in Pittsburgh.
But
PRT certainly made it sound like it.
I mean, but that's the thing. If you look into their budget, I don't think this is a good thing, because where it landed is that the state agreed to let PRT and SEPTA over in Philly tap into their own reserve fund. So basically, they're using their savings now to pay their day-to-day bills. That's not going to last very long. So the threat had been that PRT was going to have to make all these enormous service cuts, and that all of that was going to start this coming February. Now that won't happen. But how long do we have? I haven't heard a new timeline. Have you?
No, I don't know either. And I don't know if this is something where we basically just punted into 2026 and we're going to have this fight all over again.
Yeah.
Because that's certainly what it feels like from the outside looking in.
Which just does not make me feel good. Think about the NFL draft and everything else. If you want to show off a city that's thriving, you got to be able to move people from A to B. And I mean, our transit system just needs a lot of investment. These vehicles are expensive. And I mean, Colin, you're the king of wishing we had better things than we currently do.
What I wouldn't give. I mean, right now we're seeing issues with the existing lines of the T, where there have been closures around South Hills Junction. There have been issues with the Mon Incline now for the past several years. That's really affected some Mount Washington businesses, I know.
I think that's its own beef. The Mon Incline, just itself, our 150-year-old funicular versus anyone who ever wanted to ride it or get from the south side to Mount Washington.
It is beefing with our tourists. It is beefing with our local businesses. It is beefing with our transit operators. The Mon Incline, man, it is out for blood this year.
And it's owned by Pittsburgh Regional Transit, different from the Duquesne Incline. It has a different owner, but it's operated by PRT, which I didn't realize that until this year. It's a different structure.
I think there are some valid questions that need to be asked about how the most recent overhaul was undertaken there, just because there have been so many failures of things like switches and brakes and cables that needed to be replaced. And it was a pretty expensive undertaking to renovate that. And it's kind of interesting, shall we say, that it's struggled so much in the years since it reopened.
On the other hand, I mean, this was years ago, but it's 150 years old. So I got to figure some stuff remains the same. I once got to see like kind of the inside components. Like, I mean, anyone can because a lot of it's encased in glass, but they opened the doors and like they were showing us like some old parts, right? No one makes those parts anymore and has not made those parts in forever. So every time any little thing breaks, they have to custom make it and then hope that it is exactly perfect. And sometimes it is not. They also don't have technicians that know how to work on these things anymore. Like it is just such a bespoke process. Anytime literally anything on these things goes wrong. And if they have to shut it down for even a second, then the state has to come inspect us again. So it's just so protracted every single time.
This is something about Pittsburgh infrastructure in general that I think we're constantly having to cope with, is the fact that some of this stuff was built when craftsmanship was just different and the processes were different, and
artisans, the craftspeople who did it were there were more of them. Like if one guy was off work that day, you weren't screwed.
And the costs of labor were a lot different as well, because there were immigrants flooding the country at that time from all over the world who brought a lot of expertise that was very cheap to purchase at the time.
Yeah, and we have better labor protections now. Very grateful for that.
Oh my goodness, yes.
We could use better ones, but I'll take what I can get in this moment. Speaking of transit, I think we should also talk about the railroads. Like I feel like the railroads have popped up in story after story this year, particularly Allegheny Valley around like that Lawrenceville Strip District area.
That railroad has been such a source of local intrigue and occasional trouble. There have been a lot of discussions around the Allegheny Valley Railroad recently because Consumer Fresh Produce, which is one of the main users of the cars on that railroad, is actually planning to move to Upper Lawrenceville. So there have been a couple more frequent trains running down Railroad Street in the Strip as they're moving. What remains to be seen is how that land is going to be used afterward, because the railroad historically has been a pretty big sort of barrier in the way of expanding the bike trails along the river. And they occupy kind of a prime real estate down there in the Strip District.
Yeah, I mean, and another one, I think this is a conversation to keep watching because we've also talked so much in the past, like going way, way back about like the railroad's influence on our north side, for example. You know, there have been all kinds of wacky, truly projects proposed over the years, like a zip line across the Ohio River from, the West End Overlook to what will soon be the Esplanade. Can't happen because of a railroad. But even in like more real terms, like the Hazelwood area in Barb Warwick's district, Councilperson Warwick, she was fighting with them this year to try to change slightly the land use, the zoning over there, so that residences could one day be built there. But again, Allegheny Valley Railroad controls a big chunk of that. And they're like, no, this is heavy industry for a reason. We are here. We make noise. We make a mess sometimes, like it just in like a normal railroad way. Like it's tough to put a residence near that. It's been a lot of fighting.
The way the laws were drawn up for the railroads, as I understand it, in the 70s, around the time of the creation of Amtrak, has created the situation where railroads kind of always have this trump card that they can play in terms of ownership of their track beds and stuff. And actually in Hazelwood, where they've threatened to sue the city should the city attempt to change the zoning around those rail yards and things. There's also a major gap in the trail network there because the Duck Hollow Trail can't get over those railroad tracks in Hazelwood without a dedicated flyover that would cost like $1 million to build. So there's a part of the trail that just sort of ends, and theoretically you can walk across the tracks, but you shouldn't. So there are instances of this all over the city where there's just this strip of trackage that's really kind of standing in the way of what some of the people who maybe are more cycling oriented or something like that would like to see happen, with these completing the loop of these trails and really interconnecting these different parts of the city. And there's another example of that actually in Aspinwall too, with the Brilliant Line, which should hopefully come online in the next few years, but that's taken a decade of discussion to get this trestle repurposed as a potential bike trail.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I think that I always think about in these terms, like, I mean, if you think about a railroad, like it's very land based. However, going back to like the 1800s, railroads got it codified, I think, into law that they own their vertical space too. Like, not indefinitely into like space or whatever, but they get like a safe clearance. So if anyone wants to do anything above one, it takes a tremendous amount of lobbying and discussion, and it just usually doesn't happen.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait, unfortunately, for it'll be another decade or so before we get that zip line onto the Ferris wheel at the Esplanade.
Man, I'm really pulling for that guy. Won't even lie. While we're talking about funding, let's jump into Pittsburgh public schools. They've been having a time this year with the plan for closures and consolidations. They just passed through a tax increase. It's modest. It's only 2%. But I almost feel like this one is like PPS versus itself. Like it's just, I don't even know like who the players are here.
It's challenging too because there's been a bit of a changing of the guard on the board.
A lot of new faces.
A lot of new faces around, a lot of people with different kind of stakes in the future success of PPS. But there have been a lot of beefs, I think, between different stakeholders within the school versus parents. There have been beefs, I think, among different members of leadership there. That's been tough to watch because, as enrollment has kind of been affected by things like charter schools, this is something that's really personal for a lot of parents. A lot of parents who send their kids to neighborhood schools, I think, really don't want to see these closures, but the district faces a tough fiscal future without some pretty hard decisions, I think. I feel like the tax increase is just buying time.
Well, and not a whole lot of time. Like I think it was only going to cover like a tiny portion of their deficit as it was. And that was with 4%, which they weren't ultimately allowed to do because the state sets a limit on how high you can raise taxes in a given year without special permission. And I don't know if we didn't ask for that permission or if we just didn't think about it, but like the number was 4% for months. And then when they actually took the vote last week, they went down to 2 and said, oh, we can't because of state law. Like, did y'all not look that up in advance? I have so many questions.
Some of how this has played out makes me feel like some of the board members or maybe school leadership have kind of blinked on these issues in the face of pretty stiff opposition from parents. But this is also, I mean, this actually ties into another bigger Harrisburg beef, which is this, how many years ago was it? I think in 2018, the school funding mechanism in Pennsylvania was found to be unconstitutional. And there has still been nothing done to try and ameliorate the situation. So school districts are kind of like piecing things together. But this is another beef that is taking a really long time to play out. Feels like there's a lot of bad blood on all sides there.
I think you're thinking of the court case, which went all the way back to 2014. The unconstitutional ruling was in 2023.
Okay.
But I mean, the whole Harrisburg question, like they haven't figured out how to equitably fund schools. They haven't figured out how to fund transit. There's a lot of open questions about things like childcare subsidies and also taking care of people when federal services go down. Like there's a lot of questions. And my God, how could I forget the big one? Will the state of Pennsylvania ever do automatic, regular, routine property reassessments? Because I feel like all of our local leaders keep saying that they want Harrisburg to fix that it shouldn't be up to us.
This is something I would love to see resolved, simply because I fear that at some point along the line, a lot of us are going to get a big bill. The longer this takes, I feel like the bigger the bill is going to be. And that makes me nervous.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while we're fussing about the government, let's go federal. This one's just bleak, man. I feel like ICE versus everybody.
Yeah. I saw a very unpleasant video from Mount Washington yesterday of somebody being wrestled to the ground in front of their home. There's been a lot of community resilience across the country, but it's community resilience that personally I would rather we don't need.
I don't want to have to be this resilient.
No, I'm tired, man, and I have a lot of privilege, including citizenship.
Absolutely.
So
I'm blessed beyond measure, but our community is exhausted, and there's no amount of mutual aid that makes up for this.
No, and I think it's tough in Pittsburgh too, where these communities are historically pretty separate from one another, and so you might see something happening across the river, and I don't know. It really it feels pretty hopeless sometimes. But there are some good groups in Pittsburgh doing important work. I love to see places like Casa San Jose making that beef known in front of ICE's building in Southside. But
And
yeah,
they do.
it's
They
bleak.
organize, demonstrations and things like that. But I mean, it's difficult. They don't want to put anybody in harm's way. It's this weird dance we're all doing where it's like you want to be strong, but you also can't poke the bear.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those things that feels like we're kind of in a holding pattern or waiting for some additional shoe to drop, which, I think there's plenty of historical reasons why people should not be acting in that way and should be more proactive. But it's challenging when there's a lot on the line. And I think a lot of Americans right now are facing a very real fear of violence because you're also seeing these episodes across the country that are quite scary. And you kind of never know when that other person is going to be you.
Yeah. Or when it's going to come more full force into your area. I count myself lucky. That's not the word, but like we don't have the National Guard. Like I hate this feeling of it could be so much worse, but like none of this needs to happen at all.
No. On the front of resistance, though, I will say, the state of Pennsylvania has been kind of part of a bulwark against some of the changes that have taken place at places like HHS. Our Secretary of Health, we distinguished her for City Paper as our Person of the Year. That
was a great issue, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, the end of year People of the Year in Pittsburgh, it's always a blast.
We had a lot of fun putting that together, and it was very inspiring to talk to some of these folks. But our State Secretary of Health, Deborah Bogan, has really been at the forefront of trying to form a regional alliance so that Pennsylvanians can continue to have vaccine access and things like that as the federal government tries to row that back. So that's going to be a beef to watch, I think, in coming years as well, is Deborah Bogan versus RFK Jr.
And snaps for Deb Bogan because she's also a Pittsburgher. She was our Allegheny County Department Director of Health. I said that backwards. But anyway, she led us before she got to the state, which is always fun.
Yeah, you love to see it.
Okay. Also federal, sort of. U.S. Steel versus the White House. Two of them, which I find fascinating. Again, I think this is a beef that like carried over from 2024, but carried over into the year of our Lord.
Yeah, the U.S. Steel situation has been kind of fascinating because especially now, President Trump has insisted in these deals that he gets some sort of golden share or stake in these companies.
Which seems to be true. I think that's real. It's not clear to me whether it extends to future presidents or they just added the word golden for the thing that they wanted to describe his power as.
I mean, he does love a golden object, so why not a golden share? But, with the Biden White House, too, I think there was a lot of push and pull around whether it was going to be Nippon Steel or Cleveland Cliffs who could potentially take over. Mm-hmm. I think there was disagreement within U.S. Steel. There was disagreement between the workers who favored a Cliffs deal and the leadership who really favored this Nippon deal.
But there were people that rallied, like at least saying that they were employees of U.S. Steel that rallied in favor of the Nippon deal. Like I think even the workers themselves were split on what the right path forward was.
And I think it felt kind of existential for U.S. Steel because they've been facing mounting pressure, a beef, if you will, with local people with lungs over Pittsburgh's air quality issues in recent
Literally
years.
Anyone downwind of one of these plants has a huge stake in this game.
Yeah. And I mean, with the fire, the Clairton Coke battery, that was a deadly accident that caused a lot of air pollution for a short time.
And happened after the deal went through when Nippon was formally allowed to purchase U.S. Steel. I don't know if all the ink is dry exactly, but it seems we're in at least some middle space where Nippon is like taking some responsibility and promising investment in different places. I'm curious to see how, to your point, Colin, like whether that's going to make a difference in places like Clairton, like Nippon going to come in and make sure that doesn't happen again. That'd be real nice.
Yeah. Well, they did just sign a lease on some office space in the U.S. Steel Tower for what they're building as, I think, an innovation center. And so there's a potential, they've paid a lot of lip service. Nippon has paid a lot of lip service to pollution controls. And if that research office or that innovation office is going to be working on pollution, I think that's something that a lot of Pittsburghers would look favorably upon.
let's talk about something Pittsburghers have not been looking as favorably upon in recent months and years. Some of our sports teams. I feel like maybe my favorite beef, rivalry, whatever you want to call it, feud in all of 2025 was fans versus Bob Nutting, the owner of the Pirates.
I may be overstating this, but as a casual observer and sort of casual Pittsburgh sports fan, I, have my Ohio roots to thank for some of my preferences there.
That's fine. If you wear black and yellow, like occasionally to a game if needed, like that's enough. That's enough around here.
Yeah. Oh, I got a closet full of black and gold stuff. Don't worry.
Proud of you.
But the Pirates, man, I feel as a casual observer that they reached a breaking point with their fans this year. I went to the Paul Skeens bobblehead day.
You were there? I
was there, and it was packed, and the chants of sell the team were deafening. And I have never, I've seen some frustration. I have seen bitterness, but I have not seen this just level of out and out anger that the fans are directing at Nutting. And I think the pressure is really on for them to either go big or go home,
It's on. I mean, the pressure's on, yes. But does Bob Nutting care at all? I know that we are aware of this feud, but it's not at all clear to me that this has even pierced the cranium for Bob Nutting. He just has not seemed to care about our team in a decade.
I don't know what it would take at this point because he's been, accosted by fans with these chants. He's been photographed, by that one legendary fan who wore the Sell the Team shirt and snuck in for a selfie. It's so funny.
I love these dudes. I mean, it's not just men, of course. It's a ton of people, but they're organizing plane flyovers saying Sell the Team. They did it on opening day, home opener. They have T-shirts, of course. I am the proud owner of one, and every single time I wear it out into the city of Pittsburgh, I get thumbs up and cheers. And it takes my brain a second to be like, is this catcalling? No. You just like my shirt. Cool. Me too. I like it too. Here's where you buy it.
Pittsburgh is over it. And I mean, where the Pens are changing ownership again, I think there are some valid questions there about how they're going to proceed. There's I think a widespread perception right now that we're nearing the end of the window for Sid the Kid and Gino.
Nearing the end of the window. That's such a nice way to put it, Colin. These men are too old to be playing hockey anymore. I love them.
I'll concede that maybe for Malkin. I still think that Crosby's got the juice.
His stats are still phenomenal for any player, period. But he is not the Sid Crosby of the 2015-16 era, 17 era. He's just not.
No, he's not. But, with this new ownership group, they're kind of an unproven quantity. They own an ECHL team. It's a little bit smaller of an outfit than Fenway. I don't think that's as hot of a beef as the Bob Nutting versus the fans. But the Pens fans, I think, are rightfully, getting a little impatient for some playoff wins. And the Steelers fans certainly are as well.
Before we move on, I don't think it's the Pens versus the fans in that one. I think it's the Pens versus the passage of time.
Oh, yes. The Pens versus the slow creeping of age.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, the Steelers, let's lump them in. I feel like that one, if anything, it's more like Steelers fans wrestling with their own feelings about wanting the team to succeed, but also not liking Aaron Rodgers.
There are a lot of complex beefs within the Steelers right now. I think there's obviously a subset of the fans that has been crying for Mike Tomlin's head for years now. There is a subset of fans who are not happy about Rodgers, but maybe cautiously optimistic about how this season is playing out. They really
want to go to the playoffs, and he seems like he might be able to do it, but they also just don't want to root for this dude, which, I mean, not wanting to root for the quarterback of your team is a very familiar feeling for Steelers fans.
Yeah, they're just, I think the real beef with the Steelers is against the lack of a true franchise quarterback. I was actually discussing yesterday with some friends that if Joe Burrow is potentially planning to leave Cincinnati, maybe we could use his beef with Cincinnati to draw Joe Burrow into the Steel City. So I don't know, man.
You're pulling it on Ohio beef into Pittsburgh. Okay.
He's from, Athens isn't that far away. So maybe he can make the hop over the border and we could go to the Super Bowl once again with Joe Burrow at the helm.
Hey, we got some OU alum in this household. I'll take it.
Nice.
We will end extremely local with some neighborhood beef. Let's start with Penn Avenue businesses versus People's Gas.
So this year has seen People's Gas undertake what I can only describe as the mother of all line replacement projects. And they have done so with pretty reckless abandon. We've had some streets in my neighborhood torn up to the point that it was pretty impossible to get in or out of our block. This Penn Avenue situation, though, it is a lunar landscape over there, and the businesses near the Children's Hospital are rightfully getting a little bit frustrated with how long that's taken and how bad the conditions have been, especially after all the snow.
Well, and I think the thing that really throws me about it is like when I first moved to Pittsburgh in 2013, like I avoided Penn Avenue, like that corridor, like because it was destroyed then too. Like you couldn't get anywhere. You literally had to park like multiple blocks over to be able to walk anywhere or like get dropped off on a bus line way far away from where you actually needed to be because like you couldn't go down the street. It looked like a bomb had hit it in a couple of spots. And that went on for like 2 years then. It hasn't been that long. Why are we doing this to these folks again?
I have a personal frustration with this, that there seems to be no communication among city utilities. That's something I would love to see potentially Mayor O'Connor tinker with. But more immediately, it just along Penn Avenue, this is a matter of livelihood for some of these folks.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, we've already seen some businesses cave. I mean, it's not, and I don't say that with any like animosity. Like it's hard to run a small business. It's a lot harder when nobody can get to your store.
Yeah, I mean, this is happening all over Pittsburgh, but the Penn Avenue thing, it just feels like it's been this endless, drawn-out process. And I think some Pittsburghers are rightfully starting to kind of reach the end of their rope with this as well. This isn't Penn Avenue, but a group of Squirrel Hill neighbors recently sent a letter to Mayor-elect O'Connor basically protesting the fact that immediately after their street was torn up for water line work, it was torn up for gas line work. And this
y'all couldn't have done this at the same time?
Yeah, like can't we all just like work together a little bit more? It feels like the process has gotten quite complicated.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some brilliant bureaucratic reason why that's the case, but I would love to fix that. Can we enact some policy maybe? I don't know. Let's move over to the South Side. I feel like they have also been kind of ground zero for like a lot of conversations around business and public safety and crowd control. I mean, it's such a rich neighborhood. I used to work over there and I loved it. It was so much fun. But I also did not spend a lot of time on South Side at that age anymore, like after dark, because it was just like a very different environment.
Yeah, I would frame this beef in recent years in some ways as some of Southside's business owners sort of versus their own clientele.
It's a lot of college kids. It is. It just is.
And you're seeing these businesses that draw in a pretty diverse young crowd, mm-hmm. Sometimes instituting like sort of dog whistle-y dress codes or chastising people for acting up at their rooftop bar, Foxtail, and things of that nature.
I think the incident you're referring to was maybe 2022, but yes.
In any case, though, it just feels like, you're cultivating a certain atmosphere and then you're mad when people enjoy it. That having been said, though, I also think Southside has done a lot in the past year in particular to make pedestrian safety more of a priority, to improve lighting along that corridor. So I'm cautiously optimistic, I think, for the future of Southside. There are a lot of doomers and sort of naysayers about like, oh, it's really like turned a bad corner and this and that.
I feel like
but it's a pretty small stretch that's that.
It is. And
raucous.
There's been all this discussion too for years about making it an entertainment district, which I think is amazing. Like what a cool aspiration. But you got to be down for what that means.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a choice that, a lot of Pittsburgh businesses have faced over the years, especially when NEBby neighbors start to phone in those noise complaints and things like that.
Yeah.
How much do you want the business versus how much do you want the calm? I think that's a trade-off that some businesses seem unwilling to make.
Yeah, I mean, but, if the Pens did win the Stanley Cup, they absolutely want everyone to flood Carson Street. They do. So, yeah.
And they should. If they win a cup again, especially if they can win one more with Sid the Kid, hey, I think they're totally justified in freaking out. We're not Philly, but we'll have a good time.
Yeah, nobody's really climbing poles around here, but I think I'm okay with that. Last one, and actually just a hair outside the city, but I feel like enough of us have complained about it that it should count. Fraser Township versus Pittsburgh Mills, or at least the owner of our soon-to-be vacant mall.
Wow. And I gather there has been some forward progress on patching some of those potholes, but I use the term...
it's come in fits and starts. Like, I feel like that's the thing, right? Like, people will try to fix it, but then, like, bills don't get paid. The owner of the mall complex has been fined so many times. Like, we are in tens of millions of dollars territory at this point.
I had used the term lunar landscape to describe Penn Avenue earlier, and Penn Avenue looks
Oh, the
like it has
craters.
been
I get it.
treated
I
with
get
a
it now.
Zamboni compared to the Pittsburgh Mills situation. Those potholes are big enough to swallow a human being. And I have to shout out the random Wazer who continually reports those potholes on Waze. Every single time I drive past on 28, there are a bunch of little stamps around Pittsburgh Mills. So somebody has been very diligent about letting people know about those potholes.
That's beautiful. Maybe that's the beef, is the random Pittsburgh Wazer who's committed to letting everyone know that these potholes are still, in fact, there.
We see you. Keep it up.
Before we let you go, I'm curious, are there any beefs that you predict or you want to see in 2026?
Ooh, beefs that I predict in 2026. With the Gainey Heisler sort of like we're spending too much in fiscal distress, very curious to see what that relationship is going to look like with an O'Connor administration. Because especially O'Connor is bringing some controller experience. So
yeah, he's been the county controller for the last few years.
You got to wonder if there's going to be some, push and pull about like, is the city spending more responsibly or still, being profligate in these lean times?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'll extend it. And I think mine will be, I hope it's not a beef, actually. I hope it's a beef that is resolved, is just how contentious the discussion has been with the mayor's office and our big nonprofits here, specifically UPMC. I hope that that is a beef that can find some resolution with the new administration and that, okay, I don't know what magic is required, but I hope O'Connor can make UPMC pay up.
I mean, that is a beef that has been simmering under a couple different administrations
20
now,
years, at least.
That would be a massive coup for Mayor-elect O'Connor if he could somehow pull off the long, elusive UPMC deal that Peduto sought and that Gainey sought. So, yeah, I mean, especially with the expansion of their hospitals and all the infrastructure costs that's caused.
And the fact that we don't have functional ambulances, like this feels simpatico to me.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about fleet maintenance here. Like, why shouldn't the people who are, using these roads for emergency services, pony up a little bit for fleet maintenance?
Fleet maintenance, maybe some road maintenance. Can they can UPMC handle the pothole brigade? Bring the pothole brigade back. They could brand it.
They have their own police force, right? So why shouldn't they have their own paving service? Perhaps that, yeah, I love the idea of branding it. Just like stamp a logo in there. Let people know what you're doing out there on those mean streets.
A little product placement coming in 2026. Whatever the fights are, Colin, I know you will be paying attention to them. Thank you so much for your service to the community in 2025. We will see you on the other side.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. We will be back on Monday in observance of the Christmas holiday. You can support us by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you need any last-minute gifts, you can always gift a membership. I will see y'all before the new year. Get some rest, Pittsburgh.
Sorry, my coffee machine is beeping. Let me try that again.